The very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society. And we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret society, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings.
Waking humanity, one soul at a time. This is the World You Don't Know radio show with your host, Nick O'Connell.
Now, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. You're very welcome along to this week's edition of The World You Don't Know with myself, Mick O'Connell. And I have an interesting show for you tonight. I have the President of the Irish Republican Brotherhood coming on shortly, Mr. William James McGuire, Billy McGuire. Now, you can go onto his website, billymcguire.com, to find out about your sovereignty, which is the subject we're going to be talking about tonight. And we're also going to be talking about the upcoming turning of the sovereign seal ceremony, usually held in the Mansion House at 12 noon on Ireland's Independence Day, which is this Saturday, the 21st of January. Now, most people don't know that Ireland have an Independence Day. I recall Colin Meaney being on the Miriam O'Callaghan show there a couple of years back during the summer, and he was asking her why Ireland doesn't celebrate its Independence Day when, as he could see, walking through Dublin Airport, there were American flags everywhere, and we're expected to know and celebrate America's Independence Day, but why not Ireland's? I mean, we're told in school that we've achieved independence from British rule, but why don't we celebrate it by having an Independence Day? Well, we do. We have an Independence Day, and it's the 21st of January. Now, there's a very good reason as to why this has been airbrushed out of the history books, kept out of the schools, and certainly kept out of the mainstream media. And my guest tonight is Billy McGuire, and he will tell you why this is the case. Anyway, I'm going to go to Billy's, and we'll take it from there then. Good evening, Billy.
A little bit, will you?
Oh, I can hear you. Can you hear me now, Billy?
Yeah, that's better.
All right, that's grand now. I have it just set right. Now, I was just saying to the listeners there, Billy, that, and by the way, you're very welcome onto the show.
Thank you very much, Mick, and I say good evening to your listeners as well.
And I'm sure that they bid you a good evening too, Billy. Now, listen, Ireland's Independence Day, which is not spoken about in either in school or the mainstream media. And
Civil war politics, Mick.
Sorry?
Civil war politics.
Civil war politics, indeed. Billy, would you like to explain to the listeners what our Independence Day is all about, and in particular the turning of the sovereign seal? Can you give us a brief history of it?
Well, it was, everybody sort of enjoyed 2016 last year, the 100th anniversary of our rising. And the rising was very important. But what was really important, and what the Irish and Fenian Republican Brotherhood, they were the ones who established the rising and established the state, the sovereign. The name of the state is the Sovereign Republic of Éire, and the Sovereign Republic of Éire's Dáil Éireann government, and the Sovereign Republic of Éire's Dáil Éireann courts, 4 courts, and the War of Independence as a defence force. And that's what, you can bring up 1916 then, and we all had that last year, and it was a wonderful year for some anyway, but not for the Irish Republican and Fenian Republican Brotherhood who funded and founded the state. But it's all about setting up Dáil Éireann, and Dáil Éireann was established by the will of all the people in the 1918 32 county election from GHQ, Vaughan's Hotel, and anybody in Dublin will know Parnell Square. It was old Rutland Square in those days, and Vaughan's Hotel is 29 Parnell Square and Granby Row. And that was the headquarters of Cumann na Fianna, Inina Hearn, the Irish and Fenian Republican Brotherhood. They were all in that. And the point about Vaughan's Hotel was so important that this, we can go back if you like and talk about it. But the tunnels up from the Rotunda, and as you know, Bartle D'Arcy, he opened up those tunnels last year, and he had an exhibition there, which was a most wonderful exhibition. Well, we would not, the Irish and Fenian Republican Brotherhood, my family would not have bought Vaughan's Hotel without those tunnels. That's important, because without those tunnels, you couldn't have won the 1918 32 county election, and you wouldn't have won the War of Independence. And that's what they did. Now,
can I ask you, Billy, the 1918 election, okay? You say it was a 32 county. Are you still there?
It was a 32 county. You're right in that.
A 32 county election, yes. And of course,
that's the mandate we were given. That's the mandate. Everyone talks about mandates. Well, the Irish and Fenian Republican Brotherhood. If you read the proclamation, the 1916 proclamation is the Irish and Fenian Republican Brotherhood's 1916 proclamation and the Sovereign Constitution. They're the foundation documents of the state, the Sovereign Republic of Éire. And that was by the will of all the people in the 1918 32 county election.
So what came after that? What happened to this country after that? Why do we not have a 32 county sovereign republic then?
Well, we have. But what happened was that was the 32. That's the mandate that the Irish and Fenian Republican Brotherhood were given to set up the Sovereign Republic of Éire, the Sovereign Dáil Éireann Government, and the Sovereign Dáil Éireann Courts and the War of Independence. And they set that up from GHQ Vaughan's Hotel. And Dáil Éireann, as you rightly said, was the 21st of January 1919 in the Mansion House in Dublin. And that's where Dáil Éireann never sat in Leinster House. Dáil Éireann always sat in the Mansion House. But unfortunately, King George V in August 1919, he declared Dáil Éireann to be an illegal assembly. This is now the same as you're talking about Brexit. By the will of all the people of the 32 counties. And remember, there were no borders. There was nothing. It was a 32 county mandate, and that's what we were given, and that's what we still hold that mandate today. And King George V decided then on the 6th of December 1921, when he usurped the sovereignty of the sovereign citizens, who became sovereign citizens on the 21st of January 1919. That's the mandate, and by the will of all the people. And he usurped the sovereignty of Dáil Éireann, and he declared Dáil Éireann to be an illegal assembly. And he imposed a British apartheid system for the 26 and 6 counties of Ireland as an Orange Free State and a provisional government. That's what's in Leinster House today. It's only a provisional government. The mandate for Dáil Éireann is a 32 county mandate, and the mandate for the presidency is a 32 county mandate. So it was achieved, it still is achieved, it's still held, but it's not recognised by the provisional government. And if you go on to Brexit and you go on to Europe, the General de Gaulle would not allow Britain to join the EEC common market at the time. We wanted to join it as well, but they wouldn't allow us, because Britain doesn't have a sovereign government. Britain has a royal government, royal courts of justice, and a crown force. But their sovereignty comes from the Harp, 1155, when Pope Adrian IV, the only English pope, illegally and fraudulently gave it to Henry II to build his empire. And that's known as the Bull Laudabiliter. And that's what's caused all the problems ever since. And as you know, we have asked Pope Francis, when he comes here, that he would, put that right, that Bull Laudabiliter. We have a sovereign government where our people are sovereign, and that's been an awful burden on our people since 1155. And it's time, I think it's time people stood up, and it's time politicians stood up. And it's time the truth. We do not want this lies and deception, propaganda lies and deception by the provisional government or by Michael D. Higgins, pretending that they're the sovereign government or pretending that they're Dáil Éireann, when they're not Dáil Éireann. Dáil Éireann has never sat in Leinster House. And the reason that Dáil Éireann wouldn't sit in Leinster House was that on the 6th of December 1921, I said, when King George V usurped the sovereignty and imposed that British apartheid system for the 26 and 6 counties of Ireland as an Orange Free State and a provisional government. And he sent Collins and the Free State government, they went down to Leinster House. Now, the Duke of Leinster was the agent for the Crown of England. And the Royal Dublin Society had their show in Leinster House. And they got the lease of that, of the Royal Dublin Society's show at Leinster House. And that's where they set up the Free State government. Now, Sinn Féin, who was the political wing of the Irish Republican Brotherhood, and O'Glan Ahern was the military wing, and they would not take they were after getting this huge mandate from all the people of the 32 counties, but they wouldn't take their seats in Leinster House because it was under the Crown of England. It's as simple as that. And it probably, I'll keep on asking, who owns Leinster House today? And you'll probably find it's still owned by the Crown of England.
No,
and you'd want to ask where you're paying your taxes to.
Can I ask you, Billy, everybody who watches, I'm going to play devil's advocate tonight, as I did say that to you earlier on. you know, the man on the street will say, well, look, I watch the news all the time, and they're always referring to Dáil Éireann and stuff like that. Now, can you explain to the listeners why you think Leinster House is not Dáil Éireann? What?
Oh, Leinster House is never done. Dáil Éireann never sat in Leinster House. Dáil Éireann is a 32-county mandate. The Royal Oireachtas is what is known as Leinster House, is a 26-county mandate. It's the 26 and 6 counties, and that's why Stormont is a 6 counties.
Now, I've read through the 1920, is it 1922?
Nick, it's very hard to hear you.
Sorry, I read the Free State Handbook, basically, Article 17, which is an oath of allegiance to the British Crown and the Royal Family, to King George V, his heirs and successors, and that was to be taken by members of the Oireachtas. Now,
No. You want to distinguish. The Royal Oireachtas is different. That's under the Crown, whereas Dáil Éireann is under the sovereign citizens. You are a sovereign citizen.
Yeah.
And you must make a clear distinction between royalty, and you must make a clear distinction between sovereignty. Sovereignty is what the harp is the covenant, we said, between God and man, with all the information, knowledge for his planet Earth and our civilization. Sovereignty is the crown. Sovereignty is the harp, but the crown is royalty, and the crown is pomp and ceremony, and that's where that comes from. But it's nothing to do with sovereignty. The sovereignty of the state and the sovereignty of the people. It comes from the harp, and it comes from the will of the people. If you read the 1916 proclamation, which is the Irish and Fenian Republican Brotherhood's document, and you read the sovereign constitution, it makes it quite clear. All the assets of the state, they're all, it comes from the people. The people are sovereign here, whereas the people in Britain are subjects to the Crown of England. And you saw there with the vote in Brexit. And we said about General de Gaulle wouldn't allow Britain into the common market because Britain has a royal government. They don't have a sovereign government. The sovereignty comes from us. That's where they get their sovereignty.
Now, can I ask
1155 is when Pope Adrian IV, and if you take the Magna Carta, which is the constitution of the British, and that was very much restricted. You can't restrict sovereignty, but you can, as constitution can be restricted. Constitution is man-made, but sovereignty is God-made, and that's the difference between the two. That's why we have God on our proclamation, you know.
Now, can I ask you, Billy, for people out there who think that what you do every year, the turning of the sovereign seal, for those who would say, oh, it's just a simple little ceremony, it doesn't have any meaning or anything like that, what would you say to those people?
Well, the harp is all about, we have to explain the harp. The harp is the covenant between God and man with all the information and knowledge for his planet Earth and our civilization. And nobody understands God. But you understand the harp, which is the covenant between God. It's the first computer known to man. The first four strings are earth, air, fire, and water, man's intellect and reason, and his 5 senses. The first string is the golden thread. And that string is the first structured, it's the Om alphabet, the first structured language of mankind, how man could understand how to write. And then hieroglyphics is the second. All mathematics is your measuring tape, your plumb line, your straight edge. It defines, it's all about, and I said it's the first computer, the first 4 strings, earth, air, fire, and water, man's intellect and reason, and his 5 senses. And that's how you understand planet Earth. That's how you understand yourself, and you understand your own being, and how you get talent, and how you can get crafts, and how you can build, and the wheel is the curved side of the harp. That's the fellows of the wheel. The strings become the spokes, and the hub of the wheel is that little eye in the front of it. And so that's how man invented the wheel. How you build your ship, how the pyramids of Egypt were built, all mathematics, all science. All modern technology today comes from the harp. And our ancestors and your ancestors carried that from the Middle East right across Europe and right to the edge of the known world, which was Hibernia. And that's why it was so important that you would have this. You're talking about civilization. You're talking about creation of civilization and the welfare of the people. That's what the first thing we'll do when we go into we won't be going into, unfortunately, the Mansion House because the Lord Mayor, Brendan Carr, he won't let us in. And I think it's unbelievable in the country when we had all last year, it's pure hypocrisy to see those politicians out there and they won't allow the Irish and Fenian Republican Brotherhood into the Mansion House. We wanted to go into the cabinet room, whereas Dáil Éireann sat in the round room for 3:30, and they ratified all that, the tricolour flag with the green nearest to the pole, and ratified the proclamation, the sovereign constitution, foundation documents of the state, and you became sovereign citizens, and it's to think that the Lord Mayor, Brendan Carr, who's a Labour man, he will not allow the Irish and Fenian Republican Brotherhood. That's pure hypocrisy. And there is no place for civil war politics in this state anymore by anybody, whether it is Fianna Fáil or Fine Gael. And as you know, last year, the 100th anniversary of the Irish and Fenian Republican Brotherhood, who funded and founded the state, we weren't invited to one commemoration. We were treated with contempt, and we were snubbed on every occasion, even to Easter Monday, when that's always our day at the GPO. It was the Irish and Fenian Republican Brotherhood who put up the tricolour flag, the green, white and orange flag, on the GPO on Easter Monday, 1916. It was taken down by Diarmuid Lynch and it was brought up under those tunnels, which I've just explained to you, from the rotunda, from the ambassador, up to Vaughan's Hotel. It was never captured, and it was Diarmuid Lynch who brought that up. And I mean, when you think of the history we have, and you think of why is it, and I have been giving out to Maurice Manning, who is the Chancellor of all the universities of Ireland. And as I said recently, somebody asked me, and I said, it is scandalous to think of parents who go to the trouble and to the expense and the hardship to educate their children and sending them to university and to college. And they're not taught anything about our history of how and who founded the Irish and Fenian Republican Brotherhood, who founded and funded the state, and it is the Irish and Fenian Republican Brotherhood. They know nothing about their history. They're taught absolutely nothing about it. And you're talking about these graduates coming out of university, qualified doctors and engineers and nurses and all these great people, craftsmen, and they know nothing about their history. They don't even know the difference between the sovereign seal and the heart. They don't even know what's on their passport. And I think that is deliberately done by the Provisional Government, the way you will never know anything about your history, or you'll never know the facts about what happened, or you'll never know how 1916, or you'll never know anything about the proclamation or the tricolour flag is never taught. They don't teach anybody in the universities or the schools.
And
I think that's an awful sad.
It's deliberate, though, isn't it? Billy, listen, I need to go to an ad break. So do you mind hanging on for a couple of minutes?
Yes.
Yeah, I need to go to a quick ad break, Billy. So do you mind hanging on?
No, but
that's great.
You want to turn it up a bit. It's very hard to hear you.
I will indeed. I'll turn it up when I come back, Billy. Folks, we'll be back in 2 minutes with Billy McGuire.
Thank you.
Broadcasting to Lucan, this is Liffey Sound, 96.4 FM.
Now, folks, you're very welcome back. As you just heard there, the text line is 087 062 7138 if you have any comments about my guest, Billy McGuire. And I'm going to go straight back to Billy anyway, because I want to get a little bit more information and try and get to the bottom of why this country doesn't officially celebrate its Independence Day. Billy, you still with me?
Hello, mate.
How are you doing, Billy? You can hear me now, can you?
Thank you.
That's grand. Billy, in 1918, as you outlined, I want to try and get this that it makes sense in my head, and therefore my listeners who are listening, who don't know this history. In 1918, as you said, there was a 32-county election, and of course the British at the time obviously didn't like that. So
it was a British election, you know. It was the British. We were under Britain at the time, and we voted in that election to leave for our own independence.
Right.
That's what we voted for.
So it was a bit like a Brexit back then.
Absolutely. And I keep on saying, what's the difference? And what's the difference? Why aren't we allowed to have our sovereign Dáil Éireann government and in the Mansion House? I mean, that was by the will of all the people of the 32 countries. There's no difference between the Brexit of last June and the Brexit that was here in the 1918 32-county election. I mean, that's a democracy, and that's by the will of the people, and that's the mandate that I still hold today, as the last member left of the Supreme Council of the Irish and Fenian Republican Brotherhood. And yeah, everybody's shouting about Brexit, and you have to do what Brexit says. And what about our 32 county election? And it was usurped by King George V as the British apartheid system for the 26 and 6 counties of Ireland as an Orange Free State and a provisional government. That's what we have. A provisional government cannot sit in the European Parliament. And that's the only government that's on next Saturday.
Now, can I ask you, Billy, if, as you say, Ireland is under the ilk of the British Empire still, via the Oireachtas, okay, what does that mean then for Ireland as a country as far as Brexit is concerned?
It means disaster, because all that you're doing is paying your taxes. You saw last Monday night when they showed us the vulture funds, when the provisional government went around the world, brought in these people to buy up all the assets for nothing. And look at the bankrupt people. They've put people out of their homes. They're still doing it. That is not what we set out to do. That's not what those great people went out in 1916 for. And to achieve what we achieved, a sovereign all-Ireland government. Look, with Brexit, and everybody's shouting about Brexit in Britain, but you don't see any politicians or any of the papers or any of the journalists coming out and say, well, we only have a provisional government. What's going to be the outcome for Ireland? And no one will ask the question. And it's like another disaster waiting to happen. We don't want any disasters. Look, we have a sovereign government, and we have a great people, and we have been through hell and back in the last couple of years. We don't want to see that again. It's going to happen because people, politicians, and others, they won't ask the questions. They won't ask them. Every day you're getting all this propaganda on RTE, you're getting it on all over the place. The government said this. Since the 6th of December 1921, we only have a provisional government. It's there in black and white for anyone to read it. A provisional government, and I keep telling you, you cannot sit in the European Parliament. They're illegally and fraudulently using the Irish and Fenian Republican Brotherhood's tricolour flag and using our sovereign seal without our permission.
So, Billy, can I ask you a question? Is that, if, as you say, a provisional de facto government, which ours is, and they admit that themselves, I've heard a phone call from a member of the public to the Oireachtas, I think it was the Taoiseach's office, and the person asked that very question.
Provisional Taoiseach, Mick, not Taoiseach.
Well, provisional Taoiseach, yes, sorry. But the question was asked, does Ireland have a de jure or a de facto provisional government? And the answer was, it's a de facto provisional government. That's from the horse's mouth. Okay, now, so taking that into account, Billy, and as you just said there, a de facto government under European law cannot sit at the table in the European Union.
That's absolutely correct.
And it is correct, Billy, as you say. Why is Ireland at that table? How are we at that table if that's the case?
Well, because Britain wanted to go in, and they got in because we had our sovereign government of the 21st of January 1919. That's how Britain got into the European common market at the time. And now they're going to leave that. But they will not mention here the consequences of that here. What is Europe, what are the other 26 members going to say? That where's your sovereign government? Where's your sovereignty? You have to have sovereignty. And we have it on the 21st of January 1919. And the provisional government won't recognise it. You saw yourself all last year, not once they took our tricolour flag. I told you what happened on Easter Monday when they put up that flagpole in front of the GPO. And Heather Humphreys, I was at the last commemoration in Galway at the university. And on the Friday morning, Heather Humphreys stood up on the platform, on the stage, a huge hall with a huge lot of crowd of people. And she said, we have taken back the national standard from the dissidents. How dare she say that? That is the Irish and Fenian Republican Brotherhood's tricolour flag that we put up on the GPO. And I said to Maurice Manning, who put up the tricolour flag on the GPO in 1916? And of course they won't answer it. They'll run away. They're taking and lying to the people. They're lying. We do not want people lying on behalf of the people. We have a sovereign government by the will of all the people, a legitimate, legal, valid and bona fide government, and nobody's allowed to know anything about it. And they're going on with this old pretense that they're Taoiseach and that that we have a president of Ireland. We haven't a president. We have a president of the Royal Oireachtas. Michael D. Higgins.
Now, can I say, I seen, if we could just jump in there, Billy, I seen a video a long time ago of Michael D. Higgins, and it was a video I think that was probably shot at the early 90s or the late 80s, and in the video it was a protest, and it was about natural resources. I think it was about fishing at the time, and he's on the video clearly saying he had a pair of jeans on and a t-shirt. He looked like he was at some sort of a festival, but he said that his exact words were that the assets of the state belong to the people of the state and the people alone. And that's correct, and you say that yourself. But yet, here's this very same man signing the Irish Water Bill into law, which is an asset of the state.
Not only that, evicting people out of their houses, appointing provisional judges to evict our people out of their houses. That is not what 1916 was about. That's not what the 21st of January 1919 was about. It's the right and welfare of our sovereign citizens, education, all the assets of the state. That's what it's about. And the land of Ireland belongs to the citizens of Ireland and to them alone. I can read it out for you in the sovereign constitution if you want me to. But I'm saying to you, we have a sovereign government, and it's there. And if anybody in Europe says, Ireland, where's your sovereign government? That's it. But the provisional government won't recognise it. Did you ever hear the likes of it in all your living days? And using our tricolour flag, and not only that, but putting a British Admiralty gold braiding round the Irish and Fenian Republican Brotherhood's tricolour flag. They have no respect for us.
Well, it's not a tricolour if there's a fourth colour added to it, Billy, is it?
That is a fourth colour. We don't have a fourth colour. We have a tricolour. But it's all this old lies and deception. Look, we have a sovereign government. We're sovereign people. We do not want those lies and deception. And I'm asking Michael D. Higgins to stand up and to tell the truth for once and for all. And I'm asking Enda Kenny to do the same. Think of the people. Think of the state that was founded, not themselves and their huge salaries and their huge pensions and their huge expenses. That's all they're interested in. And you can tell me otherwise, but that's it. And I think the scandalous that is there one paper, and there's one bank or one corporation that's here that has a license to trade in the Sovereign Republic of Ireland.
They would have a license, I suppose, issued by a de facto government.
They haven't a license. You can't issue a license. Britain doesn't allow them to issue a license because they're only a provisional government since the 6th of December 1921. We don't want that provisional government. When Collins, I remember reading Collins because I gave all the Vaughan Hotel papers, excuse me, to the University of Limerick. And I asked the university all the records of the 1916 Rising, all the records of, escape out of the GPO, down Moore Street and down those tunnels we're talking about. In 1700, when those houses were built, it was Rutland Square in those days, Parnell Square today. And you see the Gardener Remembers, you see it right down. That's built down into those tunnels. And those tunnels were led up to Vaughan's Hotel. And that was the escape plan. And you see, when they were built in 1700, those houses, the servants, which all Irish people, they were servants and tradesmen, they had to use those tunnels. And that's how Cumann Amon and the Fina and Nini Nairn and all those, and all the tradesmen used to dress up, all the Iranians used to dress up as tradesmen and everything else, and use those tunnels. That's how we won, as I said, the 1918 32 county election. And that's how we won the War of Independence, because the Crown forces couldn't cope with them down in those tunnels. And only for those tunnels, we wouldn't have bought Vaughan's Hotel, my family. And you wouldn't have won that. You wouldn't have your independence today. And yet, we're not. That's what I'm giving out about. That the provisional government will not allow our students in universities and schools to be taught anything about who founded the state, where it was founded, the difference between sovereignty and royalty, the difference, the tricolour flag, the history of it. And that goes back, that comes right down, the Young Irelanders and the Land League and all those people who gave their lives. That all came down. And it was the Irish and Fenian Republican Brotherhood, their sister organisations. The Fenians were around. But in 1858, when James Stephens, down in 16 Lombard Street, he founded the Irish Republican Brotherhood. And John O'Mahony, in 1858, that's why we celebrate St. Patrick's Day. In Doheny's in New York, the sister organisation for America was by John O'Mahony and James Stephens. There were the two. And they achieved it, and they set out to achieve our independence, which we did. And we have a 32-county independence. And also, we have the largest territory in Europe. And yet, they're trying to keep taking off those parts of it. They're trying to take the 6 counties off, which has nothing to do with it, because they don't have the right to do it. And it's time that people stood up, and it's time people demanded the truth. And I would start by saying to the politicians, who owns Leinster House? And where are you paying your taxes to? Because if you get a bill for a tax, it has to have the sovereign seal of Dáil Éireann, 12 strings, AD, and it has to have ERA underneath it. If it doesn't have that, it's not a legal, valid and bona fide licence. And that licence can only be issued by either the President of the Irish and Fenian Republican Brotherhood. That's the only one who has the mandate to do that. And it's time that people started. Look at your title deeds. Look at the tax to your car. Go out and look at the tax to your car. You see the sovereign seal. Even a dog license it does. I was looking at the 1940 dog license. It had to, because that's what the state is. And even a stamp with ERA on it, it has to have it. That's all the 21st of January 1919.
It all goes back to there.
This is coming in, all this corruption, all this rip-off. That is not what good government is. And it's time our people understood. And it's time our people stood up and asked those politicians. And to see our tricolour flag up in Leinster House is an absolute scandal. And to see, I told you on Easter Monday, when they put up that flagpole in front of the GPO, and they had the Defence Forces raising the tricolour at 12 noon and taking it down at sun, which is correct. But the point is that on Easter Monday, we were to rise our tricolour flag up on the GPO, and they had taken down the flagpole the way we couldn't rise our flag.
To stop you down it. Well, Billy, listen, I need to go to a last break, so will you hang on for a couple of minutes?
Will I hold on, or will you bring me back?
No, hold on, Billy, and don't hang up, and I'll be back to you now in 2 minutes. Folks, we'll be back in 2 minutes with Billy McGuire.
Local programmes, local presenters, local news. Tune to Liffey Sound 96.4 FM. You're tuned to The World You Don't Know with Mick O'Connell on Liffey Sounds 96.4 FM. Text Mick now on 087 062 7138 or email studio@liffeysoundfm.ie.
Now, folks, you're very welcome back. I'm going to go straight back to Billy. Billy, you still with me?
I am.
That's great. And just, we've got about 10 minutes left, 10-15 minutes left, Billy. The turning of the Sovereign Seal ceremony on Saturday, hopefully you might get into the Mansion House, but as you said yourself, you probably won't, you know. You don't have a Sinn Féin.
Outside the door if we don't get in, you know.
Yeah.
And we're going to go a little bit earlier. We're going to go at 11 o'clock because we really don't know. We're told that there's going to be a huge amount of people in Dublin.
Well, there will. There's protest planned for that day as well, isn't there? So.
And we don't know whether we can get near the... So we're going to go an hour earlier than we do it normally at 12 o'clock. And that's all to do with the cycle of life and, you know, the winter and summer solstice and turning it, going from 2017. See, the Sovereign Seal is the Book of Psalms, as I said on the harp is the covenant. The technology of the harp, which you must understand, the Bible could not have been written without the technology of the harp. And the Sovereign Seal, the Book of Psalms is the Psalter, and that's the Psalter, the instrument that has the two images, from wrong to right, evil to good. And, you know, what we have, and that's 12 strings, it has the two images, the Sovereign Seal of Dáil Éireann. And if you look over the four courts, that is an absolute scandal to see the Sovereign Trinity. And in 1921, that was deliberately desecrated. It should be the Sovereign Seal of the Trinity, the tricolour on the Ohm stick, and the harp of the Psaltery. And they have it the other way around, deliberately. A desecration of our sovereignty. And people put up with that, and I think it's scandalous. And for these learned judges in that, I am shocked with them for allowing that to go on.
But why do you think they allowed it to go on? I mean, most of these people that you speak of, Billy...
Confusing our people and desecrating them and putting them down all the time, that they're of useless and worthless people, and I think that is wrong.
Do you think that's how they think of the general public?
Yeah, I do, absolutely.
I mean, I listened to a show last night, Billy, Open Your Mind Radio, Alan and Steve. You've been on with them lads plenty of times. And last night they interviewed Garda whistleblower John Wilson. And it was a very, very telling interview. Now, I urge people to go on to OIM's website and have a listen to our interview. He said some very startling things. Basically that what he said was, on his entry into Templemore, you're basically told that you're now part of a family, i.e. on Garda Síochána, and that anybody outside of that is basically a lower form of life than you. This is the mentality that he believes is getting drummed into a lot of young men who are joining up to become guards. Now, don't get me wrong, I know plenty of nice guards out there, plenty of very decent human beings.
Absolutely.
But if you look at the likes of the water protests and all that, and you see these drones just going in, batting charging people who don't want to be put upon by a big corporation trying to steal our water.
Well, you shouldn't. I mean, that waters belong to the citizens. I mean, Earth, Air, Fire and Water, I've just mentioned the first four strings of the harp, which is the first computer known to mankind. And if we want to talk about our sovereignty, which we're talking about, we can go to Lochgar in County Limerick, the largest stone circle, Old Grange. This is not New Grange now, this is Old Grange, which is much bigger than New Grange. And we can go back there for 10,000 years on our sovereignty. There's very few countries in the world that can do that. And I also tell people, it's so important that Cromwell, he camped his troops in Lochgar, and his son Arden, they defaced all those huge stones the way Irish people would never know where they came to or where they're going to. In other words, you could never understand, and they took off all the sovereign seals off them, all the Celtic designs off them, and he executed the Bishop of Limerick, Bishop O'Brien, and Bishop O'Brien put Cromwell's curse on him, on Arden, and he told Arden he'd be dead within 40 days, and he was dead within 8. And you know, when we have all that, and they destroyed all those, I said about the books, all the Psalters, the books of Psalms, they destroyed all those, and they put our sovereign seal on up. Cromwell put it up on his coat of arms. You know, I mean, when you see what's going on, and we're not told any of the truth, if you don't know what the truth is, you're wandering around, you're wasting your time. You know, it's much more easy, and that's why we're asking Michael D. Higgins to stand up and tell the European Union that we have a sovereign government. Sorry, Mika, of the 21st of January 1919. That is the government we want to sit in the European Parliament. That is the only legal, valid and bona fide government that can sit in the European Parliament.
Okay, now, again, I want to play devil's advocate and just ask a question that a member of the public would probably ask in this situation, Billy. If you just let me continue. As you say, in 1918, we got a 32-county mandate from all the people of Ireland, okay? And in order for that then to be done away with, even with a new treaty, you maintain that you would have to have the permission via referendum of all the 32 counties to get rid of it. Is that correct?
You couldn't get rid of it, you see, because it's by the will of all the people who are sovereign. And if you want me to, I'll just... The Sovereign Constitution, which could come in nicely there now. This is the Sovereign Constitution, the foundation document with the 1916 proclamation. And the Constitution of the Republic of Ireland. To this most holy Trinity, Father, Son and Holy Ghost, we, the people of Ireland, dedicate our Constitution and beg the guidance of the Holy Spirit that it may, in consequence, with thy divine will, and contribute to the greater glory. Amen. This Constitution shall be the Constitution of the Republic of Ireland, proclaimed in arms on Easter Monday, April the 24th, 1916, and established by the will of all the people of Ireland on January the 21st, 1919. Is that good enough for you? That's what's written in the Sovereign Constitution. Article 1. The sovereignty of the nation is inalienable. It is therefore not within the confidence of any generation. The light is very bad here. The generation to surrender that sovereignty, which each generation holds in trust for their nation. The question of surrender of national independence may not be submitted to an electorate. And then it says, subject to that fundamental principles, it is hereby declared that all sovereignty, I have to try and read this in bad light, all sovereignty in Ireland, legislative, executive and judicial, and all the people of Ireland, these powers are inherent in the people alone by the virtue of their sovereignty. They may be, I can't read it, the light has gone too bad in me. But anyway, that is the song. It's up on BillyMcGuire.com if anybody wants to read it.
So, but basically what you're saying is the sovereignty of the people can't be given away by the people.
You can't, no more than Henry VIII. He was the first. Henry VII was Lord of Ireland. Henry VIII crowned himself King of Ireland. And if you take King George V, who usurped the sovereignty, and that's what Michael D. Higgins is under, and that's what those judges are under. They're under and when the Queen came here at Dublin Castle, it's there written in black and white. Mary McAleese thanked her for English common law. What the sovereign constitution, and what about Article 10 of the sovereign constitution, that the land of Ireland belongs
to the people of Ireland,
citizens of Ireland, and to them alone.
Mm.
If even somebody takes your house, you still own the land underneath it. They have to take it brick by brick. It's time that people stop this old willy-nilly going on and stood up for themselves and asked the questions, but they won't do it. I don't know why. But
I think it's been...
we could be in for terrible times with this Brexit. And, people could be on, taking their shovel again. And they won't stand up. They won't stand up for their sovereign government of the 21st of January, which is the only legal, valid and bona fide government that consists in the European
Because everything that came after that was foisted upon us.
That's exactly it. Yeah. Imposed by King George V.
And it's been that way ever since.
And that's why every year, I'm doing it for 54 years, I think, on Saturday. And the only reason I do it is to keep that alive. Where would we be today if my family hadn't done it for 98 years? We would never be able to start that again. And people would laugh at you and say, well, you didn't bother. You couldn't be bothered doing it. You couldn't be bothered going to the Mansion House. It's like your passport. You couldn't be bothered. If you couldn't be bothered, then you have to just put up with the consequences.
But thankfully you have bothered, Billy. Thankfully you have. Thankfully you have bothered.
Well, I don't know whether I've done it very well or not, but the point is, look, I do it anyway because I have been, as you know, I was the anointed heir in 1950, and I was taught by Kathleen Clark and Bulmer Hobson and Dermot Lynch and all those great people. They were the ones who educated me
and passed the knowledge on.
And they gave their lives. And it's all for the welfare, and we have benefits. Look, we would have the most wonderful country in the world if we had our sovereign government. But it's all this ripping off things and, things disappearing and somebody running off with huge salaries and getting backhanders and, getting huge pensions and that.
Really is
our citizens.
Yeah, it's quite disgusting, all right, Billy. Well, listen, Billy, I have come to the end of the show. I have to let you go now. Hopefully everything goes.
I hope we got on all right. Did we?
You did, Billy. Yeah, listen, I hope everything goes well for you on Saturday and that you are allowed into the Mansion House, and rightly so.
That'd be great, and it's great. And it's the people are sovereign. That's what it's all about.
Well, listen, thanks very much.
Thank you very much.
No problem, Billy.
And I would say good evening to your listeners.
And thanks very much for joining us, Billy. It's been an insightful hour, to say the least. Anyway, I wish you the best of luck for the future, Billy, and I'll talk to you very soon. Thanks very much. Thank you, Billy. Now, ladies and gentlemen, that was Billy McGuire from the Irish Republican Brotherhood. As I said, he does a ceremony every year in the Mansion House, celebrating Ireland's independence. Now, Billy's getting on in years as well, and as you could hear him coughing there, he's not in the best of health, but he soldiers on year in, year out to do this. Now, what Billy, I'll go just to give you a brief history of exactly what he was saying. He maintains that in 1918 there was a 32-county all-Ireland general election that they got the mandate for to run the country. It's the same as any other election that you see anywhere in the world today. Of course, the British didn't like that because it meant Ireland were completely independent from British rule, totally independent. All 32 counties. So, as you know, you've seen the Civil War, you've seen what went on there up to 1922. And in 1922, or 1921, on the 5th of December, King George V basically says, here you go, this is the government you can have, a de facto provisional government, and it's been that way ever since. And this is what Billy maintains, that the only lawful government that should exist in this country is the one that was given the mandate in 1918, and that's basically where he's coming from. Now, I did try to play devil's advocate and get him to prove his point and stuff like that. You can go onto his website to find out all this information, BillyMcGuire.com. But I've been looking at this for many, many years, and I've yet to find any information anywhere in the mainstream media that debunks anything Mr. McGuire says. If you can find any, please do forward it on to me. Certainly forward it on to Billy McGuire and let him know that you found it, and it might stop him doing what he's doing. But until then, I think he's doing wonderful work every year. It's this Saturday is Ireland's Independence Day, folks. There are a lot of protests planned for that day. David Icke is also going to be appearing in the Helix on that day for a 10-hour stint for anyone that wants to go and listen to him. But it should be a good day for Dublin all around. There's a lot of truth getting out into the mainstream these days. Donald Trump gets inaugurated on Friday. God knows what's going to happen to the world after that. You've got Brexit, you've got a lot of things. But as Billy said, if we did have our 1918 sovereign government operating in this country, I don't think we'd be in the mess that we're in today. But we are in the mess, and, well, there's nothing you can do about it. I just want to give a little plug as well to the Open Minds conference that's going to be taking place on February the 25th and 26th in Dooley's Hotel in Waterford. And it's a brilliant 2-day event. There's going to be some great speakers from the Truth Movement appearing at it. Enoch Crane, Mark Bierski, Judith Ferry Baker, Lee Harvey Oswald's ex-girlfriend, apparently is going to be appearing at it. Ben Gilroy will appear at it. There's going to be a lot of different speakers, a lot of different subjects. If you want to find out what's really going on in the world, get yourself down to Waterford on February the 25th. And that is an event that has been organised by the Awake and Aware in South East Ireland Facebook page, which is grown in popularity. They get a lot of good information out there, and you have Trevor Evers and Danny Jacob and a few others, Lolly Crane, Laura Crane, all heading up the Awake and Aware in South East Ireland Facebook page and getting a lot of information out there. And fair play to them, they put this conference together on their own, having never done it before, and hopefully I wish them nothing but success for it. Now, I do have a couple of tickets for that conference up for grabs. I'm going to be giving them away in the show next week. I'm going to have Trevor coming on just to talk about the conference a little bit. We'll come up with a question and the tickets will be up for grabs. Now listen, if you want to win those tickets, do listen in next week, but don't apply for the tickets if you can't make the conference. Only if you think you can make it, do apply for the tickets. Anyway, folks, this has been The World You Don't Know, and remember, I always say the world is full of great people. If you can't find one, be one. Talk to you all very soon.
The very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society. And we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret society, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings.
Waking humanity, one soul at a time. This is The World You Don't Know radio show with your host, Nick O'Connell.